So history 72A winter quarter 2024. We'll see how long I can remember that. I'm Karen Gettleman, and I will be your instructor for this quarter. When it comes to lecture format, I put an outline near the beginning of each lecture so that you can see at a glance which topics are covered in any particular video. You will also find most of the information in this lecture in the syllabus, and I will go over that as well here. The lower box I won't always put in, but it tells you what the coda will be, and I'll explain the coda as we go along. It's not something that you are responsible for. I have found over the last several years that people come to this class with quite different expectations. This makes perfect sense, but I have 10 weeks to discuss a deeply important set of topics and how they took shape in what is now the United States over the course of centuries. If you have your heart set on a particular topic, I may or may not cover what you want. Best to come with an open mind, but also look through the Canvas course site, especially the syllabus, to make certain that this is a class that you will enjoy. This is the class that you have signed up for. HIS 72A Women and Gender in America to 1865. There is a great deal left to interpretation right from the start to figure out what this class might be about. Just getting to the full course title, this is actually in the course catalog as Women and Gender Amer 1865. So just getting to the full course title takes some knowledge that the university simply assumes that you have. The HIS at the beginning of the course number tells you that this is a history class. This seems pretty straightforward, but actually it requires that you know the subjects taught in an American university in the early 21st century, as well as common conventions of abbreviation in English. If you had to look up the subject abbreviations for this class or any other when you registered, that was part of figuring out how the UC Davis Registrar's Office has decided to communicate with you. The number 72 may or may not mean anything to you. It is a two-digit number. So I will be approaching the material of this class as if it is new to you. Higher level courses at UCD have three-digit numbers, but this system is not a constant across universities nor over time. When I was in college in the dim, dark reaches of time, I would have interpreted the number 72 in the context of course registration in a completely different way. At UCD, in the history department, the two-digit number tells me something that you may or may not know. I knew when I agreed to teach this course that I would have TAs and discussion sections just from the course number. The A after HIS 72 suggests that there is more than one class called History 72 or HIS 72. Otherwise, why take up space with this extra letter? And that is indeed the case. There is a 72B. If you know anything about Western conventions of measuring time and that history involves change over time, you can figure out that 72B is most likely to cover women and gender in America after our end point for this course of 1865. Speaking of which, you knew, suspected, or figured out that this set of digits, 1865, is a year in this context. You almost certainly would have been surprised if I had initially said the individual numbers, women and gender in America, to 1865 rather than 1865. This is part of the vast amount of information you have spent your life learning so that you can function in the world around you. The number 1865 is not necessarily a year. It depends on context. But even if you knew that it designates a particular period of 365 days that happened, you bring other cultural knowledge to interpreting why that year is written where it is. If you saw this penny on the slide here, you would probably know that 1865 represents a date, but a date for what? If you know the basics of American money, then you can read more from this coin. You know that the numeral 1865 is a date and that the number spelled out on the other side of the coin. So here's 1865, here's ONE cent. You know that the number spelled out here, the one indicates value, not the other way around. This isn't worth 1,865 somethings, and it's not minted in the year one, which means, by the way, that you're likely to know that the date here, 1865, represents the year in which the penny was minted or made. You can and do read more from this coin than what is literally written on it. The more you know on certain topics, the more meaning you derive from the coin. But you may very well derive different meaning than the person who may be sitting in the same row as you in the lecture hall at some point over the quarter. If you were an American shopkeeper and got an 1865 penny, you would know that it is no longer really legal tender, and not because it is a penny and pennies are basically useless now. You would notice right away that the design on both sides of the coin are not the images on pennies minted in the first decades of the 21st century. Like most things, coins wear out and they are replaced with new coins from the US Mint. You, as the shopkeeper, might reject the penny because you know that it has no real value as money in 2024. On the other hand, you might keep this penny because you think it may be worth more than 1 cent as an object. You know that people collect coins, and you know that old coins are often more valuable than new ones. If you are a savvy collector of coins, or in other words, a numismatist, a word you don't need to remember, but it's just so much fun. Okay, sorry about that. If you were a numismatist, you would know that this coin we have been looking at is worth more than 1 cent, but not much more as things go in the world of coin collecting. An 1865 penny, like this one on the left, will probably get our shopkeeper around $20 to $30. On the other hand, if our shopkeeper knows very specific things about the pennies, like the two different types of five in the 1865, I admit I don't see a huge difference, but I will take their word for it. On the so-called Indian head pennies, then said shopkeeper might realize that they have a coin like the one on the right, which sold at auction for, let's see, $2,820. I had to look that up because, like the shopkeeper, probably, I am not a numismatist. I would, however, be able to come quite close to assessing the year the penny was minted, even if the date had been obscured, and I would know that from the design and imagery on the coin. I haven't studied coins, but I have studied American history. Each of you, looking at this coin, reads a somewhat different suite of meanings from it, but if I were you and had not already fast forwarded the video, I would be wondering why Karen is spending so long talking about pennies. The point is that depending on your historical context and on your own life and interests, you derive different types of ideas from the image of this coin in the first moment of seeing it. One meaning of this coin in this specific context, the first lecture of a history course, is that I want you to remember that absolutely everything from the past is like this. It, whatever it may be, meant different things to different people, even at the time it was created, and even if they all called it by the same name or label. And it meant something different to those people in the past than it means to us now. A historian examining this penny would study it and consider what meanings it held, to whom, and why. I put the picture on the right to illustrate that if I put a number on that picture and show it to folks who have not been listening to me go on and on about pennies, they tend to read the number with the picture on the right as an amount, like the number of pennies in the jar before it tipped over. If you wondered, even briefly, why anyone would fill a jar with useless coins, tip the jar over, and then take a photo, then that was historical inquiry. Well done. Let's go back to the name of the course, History 72A Women and Gender in America to 1865. I won't belabor the point much more than I already have, but the word America could stand for many things. You will probably not be shocked to learn that these were the top Google hits I got when I searched for images of America. And each of these images has meant America to someone in some context. Since this is a class at an American, you saw what I did there, right? At an American university, then you almost certainly assumed when you registered that this would be a class on the history of the region that is now the United States. You might ask yourself whether I were going to start at the point that the US is recognized to have become an independent nation state or begin in North America before the American Revolution. The answer is we are starting before the US nation state existed. But you almost certainly understood that America in the course title referred to the country and not to either of the continents, North or South America. Most of you would be surprised if I spent the class discussing Brazil or Mexico, even though both of those countries are on continents called America. What I really want you to think about now are these two words in the course title, women and gender. These words mean something to you at this moment, but do not make any assumptions about what they meant to people in the past. We will spend an entire quarter trying to figure out what people have meant by these words, if these words existed at all in their historical context. We will consider whether there were other words that meant exactly the same thing, sort of the same thing, or something somewhat related to our idea of, say, woman. And by the way, which of our ideas about what woman means will we be taking as our starting point? Stay tuned. Most important of all, we will be questioning why people thought about something that we would now label woman in the ways that they did in different historical contexts. Most of us want to get answers to historical questions because we want to know how some particular history affects us in our world now. But how something from the past influences us now is actually technically not an historical question. Someone in another field, or even in our own field of history in their off time, might use the answers to the historical questions we will be asking to understand the present. But actual historical questions we will officially be looking at in this class will be about the past, not about now, with the exception of in person live lecture discussion. The set of questions on the image on the slide came up top when I Googled women this last time. And they are, why are women so horrible? Why do men think women are foolish and stupid? Why do women have their own chess titles? And we can find all of the answers to that through history. Don't assume that you know anything about the existence or meaning of a concept we now call woman in different historical contexts. And this is in no way to insult your knowledge. We can't know everything. But okay, I do know you will unconsciously make assumptions. So will I. We all do. But pay attention to when and why you assume that you know something about the way things were for women as a large group, or even who was considered a woman in the past. Now, let's go back to the nuts and bolts of the class, what to expect and how to make your way through the Canvas course site. If you are listening to this lecture, chances are that you have already found this course on Canvas. But just in case, something like this on the slide is what you will see when you go to your Canvas dashboard. And you will want to click on the box for History 72A, indicated here by the red arrow. When you open the course site, you will see something that looks like this. Note the syllabus as the top module. You can open up the modules with the little arrows on your homepage. The syllabus is closed here, and Module B is open. You can get to this information on the slide by clicking either Home or Modules. You will see that there is a list of modules showing what I intend to cover. Every quarter is different, and you, as the class, have some influence in this. So the specifics of topics may change, and I've not committed to exact dates. Please note, modules will not correspond to weeks. The modules are constructed around the history we're covering and not by the tyranny of the Gregorian calendar. Now, you can tell which module is which and generally what we will be covering in that module from the heading. If anything changes, that will be reflected here on the homepage of the modules page. And you will never be asked about material that has not been available to you for at least 24 hours. When you open a module, you will see a set of lectures and readings. This particular image is from the course last year. The lectures will be posted as we go along. Once a lecture is posted, you will be able to get to it by finding the lecture here or in assignments, the tab just below home. You can get to lectures, quizzes, and term project due dates through assignments on the left-hand menu. The readings listed are for the entire module, not for a single lecture. If I ask you about a reading, I will make it clear which one I want you to read more carefully. Aside from that, all readings are somewhat optional for my part of the course. I would like you to at least glance through each of them so that you have an idea of what each one is about. But I absolutely do not expect you to read every word of every posted reading. Now, your TA may decide to work on any of these readings, in which case your individual TA will let you know what you should read for their part of the course. You can also access readings under Files on the left-hand menu. When you go there, I have sorted readings into a separate folder and within that into separate folders for each module. I will talk about how to tackle history reading without tears in this class or any other in the next lecture. You can access what Canvas forces me to label quizzes at the Quizzes tab or under Assignments. These are really responses to questions on the lectures and occasionally on the readings for any module. If you haven't had me before, do not panic about these things. Once you familiarize yourself with course structure and expectations, you will see why it isn't as intimidating as it may first appear. I found that people have an easier time accessing the syllabus for course policies from the homepage. Make certain that you familiarize yourself with these first two parts of the syllabus: course overview and structure, and grading. I am keenly aware that the world has changed since COVID. That is the nature of history, change over time. Rather than, or I suppose in addition to, ranting about our new reality, I've tried to make my class as approachable as I can using COVID developed tech. No system is perfect. And I say this not to preempt criticism, but so that you know if what I have set up has not anticipated your particular situation, talk to me or to your TA. Don't suffer bravely alone. The class is meant to work for you. With that in mind, before I get into the weeds of assignments and grading, I'd like to let you know what to expect when it comes to lecture. You have a written explanation of lectures as well as advice on taking notes in the syllabus at the tab circled in red. When you go to it, you will see something that looks like the image on the right. I will be inverting the classroom for this course. Any lecture material that you need to understand that you will be asked about will be on video. That gives me an opportunity in the Monday, Wednesday, Friday live sessions to discuss your interests and questions. One of the reasons that I am inverting the classroom is that I know that it can be tricky to balance all parts of overfilled and complicated lives. The Monday, Wednesday, Friday live lecture discussion times are not mandatory. I know that this will not take away most of the stress and complications in your lives, but I'm hoping my class can add as little as possible to that. The other, and perhaps really the main reason that lectures are on video, is that I think it offers learning advantages that live lectures cannot. For example, you can watch videos in parts rather than doing one long, exhausting stretch. If your mind wanders, you can go back and watch parts whenever you like. You can watch any part of a video multiple times, and you can watch a video section at midnight if that helps. Use the recorded lecture format to fit your own life and approach to learning. You should look at this section in the syllabus because I'm only going to draw your attention here to a couple of parts. You will have access to video lectures, in person lecture discussions, in person discussion sections, and reading. This is not meant to overwhelm you with things that you must do, but to give you flexibility. In order to do well in the class, you will need to engage with lecture videos and discussion sections. You do not need to do everything. I would like for my class to fit in your life as much as possible. The recorded lectures are not going to follow the Monday, Wednesday, Friday date schedule exactly. Lecture videos have far more information than live lectures, so you will never be cheated of any course material. I will not ask quiz questions for anything that has not been posted for at least 24 hours. I've not written it here, but you are certainly allowed to open the quiz, read the question, and come back and answer it later. You will have access to each quiz until the closing date. Now we get to the part that generally worries people most when starting a course, what you need to turn in and how you will be graded. Course overview and structure is the very first item in the syllabus. And again, when you open it up, it will look like this. In one sense, in this class, any particular assignment is optional. It is up to you to complete whatever assignments you'd like in order to earn enough points for the grade you want. All available assignments, including your section grade, add up to a total of 180 points. You are graded on a standard 100-point scale. I will reiterate that. Your grade is based on accumulated points, not on percentages. If you accumulate 90 points over the course of the quarter, you have a 90, which is an A minus. You do not have a 90 out of 180, which is a 50% and a failure. I've put my grading scale in the syllabus under course structure, and I'm putting it here so that you have a couple of ways to find it when you want it. Please note now that the minimum number of points that you need for an A is 94. I do not expect most students to complete all assignments. Assignments outside of sections are a mix of short responses to lectures and reading. Those are what are called quizzes, and a series of writing assignments structured to develop into a term project. You can combine assignments in whatever way works best for you. Please note your section grade is worth up to 16 points. So, in a point system, the way I've set it up, 16 points is basically a letter grade and a half. And your section grade, discussion section grade, is determined solely by your TA. Also, your TA will be the one grading the formal writing assignments. These assignments are structured as stages. More explanation on that under grading. If you wait too many weeks to start the formal project, you will limit the number of possible due dates that you can use to earn points. Better to start early as much as you can. If you do not go to sections, you will miss clarifications of what we are looking for on any formal writing stage. Go to section. In the long run, it will make your life easier. There is a 24-hour grace period after the deadline for all course writing assignments, formal and informal, where you may turn them in without penalty. This does not hold for specific section assignments. Section policy is at the discretion of your TA. All work must be turned in by the time assigned to this class for the final exam with no extensions at that point. Your TAs and I will be under pressure from the university and from the department to turn grades in quickly after that point. Remember, it's okay and expected that you miss some assignments. If you're having a rough week and can't do the quizzes or a writing assignment for this course that week, that's okay. There are more assignments the next week. Grading is the second entry in your syllabus. And again, you open it up, it will look something like this. There are three categories of assignments in this course. You can mix and match until you accumulate enough points for the grade that you want. It is up to you to complete whatever assignments you'd like in order to earn enough points for the grade you want. All available assignments, including your section grade, add up to a total of 172 points. In addition, there are up to 8 points that I can add on to your accumulated points for a total of 180 possible points. The eight, what I'm calling discretionary points, meaning is at my discretion to assign them. They are intended as a boost for folks who come to in person lecture meetings on a fairly regular basis. You are graded on a 100-point scale. I've said it before and I'm going to say it again because people panic when they get the first scores back on the formal assignment. Your grade is based on accumulated points, not on percentages. If you accumulate 90 points over the course of the quarter, you have a 90, which is an A minus. You do not have a 90 over 180, which is a 50%, which is an F. And where people tend to panic is the formal writing assignments, the formal project, those assignments are graded very sternly. And so sometimes people will get what they calculate as a 25%. The percents don't matter. What they have are points. The categories and possible points offered in each category are Category 1, lecture quizzes, up to 60 possible points. Category 2, section, up to 16, 16 possible points. Category 3, formal writing practice, up to 96 possible points. And category 4, my discretionary points, up to 8 possible points. Total 180. I don't want people to obsess about grades. That's the whole point of this. So the letter grade for more than 100 points is still a flat A. The seven-ish folks with the highest number of points at the end of the quarter get an A plus. And that's basically a sign that you're really into the course material. This is something that interests you. And people looking at your transcript know that this was a topic that you put a lot of yourself into. Now to the individual categories. Category 1, lecture, supposedly called quizzes, 3 points per quiz, 20 quizzes, up to 60 possible points. Each week, there will be 2 questions posted. The first at some point on Wednesday and the second on Friday. You can find these in the quizzes on the sidebar or navigate to them by using modules or assignments. Your response should incorporate enough material from the lecture that I can tell you have watched my lecture. Responses should be at least 350 words and are due by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. In other words, just before midnight on the week that they are posted. Do not be concerned by the fact that Canvas forces me to label these questions as quizzes. I am interested in having you engage with the material, not that you get me some correct answer or deliver deathless prose. As long as your response is of the required length and it is clear that you listened to lecture, you will receive full marks for quizzes. Entirely random musings, unrelated to course material, or overly short statements may not get any points. Answers that I can tell are from textbook, Wikipedia, or the like can get negative points. You may bring in extra material from your textbook, and you may always bring in personal anecdotes and the like, but only in addition to engaging with lecture material. Category 2, section, 16 points. Section is your key to success in lower level history classes at UCD. Do not cheat yourself by not going to section. Your TAs are all incredibly well qualified. They are the ones who will guide you through analyzing readings and who will answer most of your questions on course material and on writing assignments. Your TAs are the ones who will know how your project develops over the course of the quarter. Your TAs decide how many of your 16 section points you receive, as well as grading your papers and project stages. If your TA has no idea who you are, and or if you miss important directions on project stages that your TA gives in section, you will do far less well in the class. Category 3, formal writing stages. 8 possible due dates with up to 12 points possible on each, so up to 96 points total. There are 8 Fridays on which you may, that's may, you don't have to, turn in one and only one project stage, starting with Friday, 19 January. There are 5 possible stages of assignments, but you do not have to get through all of the stages. The intention is that you have an opportunity to work with any stage until you feel comfortable with it without having that tank your grade. Unlike the informal writing, these stages have very specific requirements that you need to meet before you progress to the next stage, but you may repeat any stage as often as necessary. Note, any repeated stage will only receive points if you've made the changes that your TA asked for in comments on your prior submission. In other words, you can't keep turning in the same or nearly the same work for a rewrite and keep getting the same number of points each time. If your TA feels that you have not made enough changes to merit a regrade, you just won't get any points. Do not confuse due dates and stages. You may turn in a formal writing assignment on any Friday from 19 January to 8 March, irrespective of whether you are repeating a stage or starting on a new stage. There are up to 12 points that go with each due date, not the stage. I find that examples help. So let's say person X gets 5 points on stage A. They work with their TA and submit a redo of stage A on the next Friday. They get the full 12 points on the redo. Person X has accumulated 17 points, not 12, but 17 from formal writing assignments and moves on to stage B. So when people usually panic, it's about this 5 out of 12. I got less than 50%. I failed. No, you got 5 points going towards the total number of points graded on a 100-point scale. You keep those 5 points. When you redo it, you're rewarded for redoing it well. You get 12 points. You move on. I put another example, so go ahead and look at that in the syllabus. I will say more about your final project later, and your TAs will be the ones who guide you through it. So for now, just note that you can find a description of the stages of the final project under grading in the syllabus. I am happy to have people reach out to me for any reason except to tell me that you hate me or that I'm horrible. You can message me through Canvas. You can email me at kdgettelman@ucdavis.edu. Usually, if this bounces, because we type TTLE by habit, and I've even done that myself. So if you don't hear back from me, check to see if the email has bounced. I'm also happy to set up a Zoom meeting with you to meet one-on-one, afternoons until 5 and evenings between 7 and 10 p.m. and weekend times are usually available. But you have to contact me to schedule a time and get a link. In my lecture videos, I will give you key points at the end so you know what I wanted you to understand from the lecture. Lecture 1 is the only time there's an extra bit to the key points themselves. So here are the key points for lecture 1, and then there will be a little section on is this the class for me? 1. You should explore the Canvas course site to make certain that you can find everything. Grading policy, assignments, and most basic course information are in the syllabus. Familiarize yourself with the different parts of this class syllabus. And if you would like clarification on anything, ask. You can reach me by sending me a message using Canvas or email me at Katie Gettleman. Do not feel like you have to read everything that I offer you to do well in this class. In life, we rarely get to do everything that is asked of us, much less do everything perfectly. This is a good class to practice figuring out what you need to do to get something from the class and how much you want or can do on any particular topic at any particular time. In order to do well in the class, you will need to watch most of the lecture videos. Anyone teaching a broad period of history has to make choices about what to focus on. We cannot do it all. When it comes to assessing your work, we don't care if you've got great things from the internet, even when they are true. We want to know that you are thinking about the material that we have chosen to present. You will not know what that is without watching lectures. If you could, there would be no point in me taking the time to create the lectures. I recommend doing as much work as early as you reasonably can and starting to accumulate points as soon as possible. Give yourself a buffer for when you have exams and projects due in other courses. Midterm weeks, people start to drop off in this class a little bit and pick up again. If we are in the last few weeks of the quarter and you have done absolutely none of the quizzes nor turned in any writing assignments, you will start to feel pressure for points. And this happens. Don't do that to yourself if you could possibly help it. Now, is this the class for you? I've tried to be straightforward about how I approach both history and grading in this class. Not every teaching style is a good fit for every single student, so this is a good time to consider. Know that my class is inverted. All lectures will be on video. Live class time will be for questions, discussion, conversation, going over quiz questions, whatever you desire. Most people like the system a great deal, but about one person out of every 75 does not. If you are that one person, better to realize that now. My grading is structured to focus on helping you think about my course material, not whether you know more details than another person. You are not in competition with one another. I am perfectly happy to give everyone A's if they get something out of my class. You have to pay attention to the aspects of history that I am presenting. You do not need to agree with me on everything or anything, really, but you do need to engage with the material and not with Wikipedia on light. Otherwise, why am I even here? I really enjoy teaching history. Really, I do. And I especially really like UCD students. I learn a great deal from my students every term. And this is not smarm, this is true. Feel free to get in touch with me and set up a Zoom or in person meeting. I do not actually have a healthy office space as of now. This can always change, but I am able to talk to people after class most days this quarter. Just grab me or set up a Zoom. Coda means tail in Italian. It's derived from the Latin word for tail, cauda. In music, a coda is an extra bit at the end of a piece or movement added onto the basic structure. In ballet, a coda is usually when the dancers for the different parts dance across the stage after the performance and are acknowledged by the audience. In literature, a coda is essentially an afterword or follow on. I usually put a coda after the key points of a recorded lecture. This is because history is, and thus the key points are, often depressing. You will never be responsible for anything that I put in a coda. They're just for fun. The coda for the intro lecture here is short. While researching pennies, I found that people have made some rather amazing things with pennies. Tabletops made with pennies are a classic. Apparently, spheres made of pennies are great for indoor or outdoor decor. And some folks have too many pennies and maybe too much time on their hands. But wow, if you're just listening, the picture is of a horse's head made entirely of pennies. It's really spectacular. Clothing and jewelry made from pennies seem to be quite popular. So here we have a dress. Actually, there are a couple of different dresses and some jewelry, necklace, bracelet. I will end on this clever person who has made a pair of penny loafers out of pennies.